Hi guys, if you have questions, email me or write a comment.
Today I'm going to talk about the double angle formulas. Let me ask you this question at the beginning. If I said I wanted to evaluate sine 2 times 30, how do you evaluate this? Are you going to say that this is equal to 2 times sine 30? Is that possible? Well, let's check that. Is it possible or not? On the left hand side, this means I'm talking about sine 60 degrees, while on the right hand side, this means 2 times sine 30, which is half. Are these equal? And that's the important question. What's sine 60? Sine 60 is actually radical 3 over 2, while 2 times half is equal to 1, and definitely these are not equal. So what you said here is not correct. So how would I evaluate sine 230 since it's not 2 times sine 30? Well, as we said in the previous section, we know that sine 2x is the same as sine x plus x, sum between angles. And if you apply the formula of sine x plus x, what will you get? This is sine x cosine x plus cosine x sine x, which means I have the same terms here. So you can combine like terms. This will be 2 times sine x cosine x. So sine 2x is actually equal to 2 sine x cosine x. This is a new identity that can be used for double angle. Let's check. Is that correct? If I'm going to apply it onto sine 2 times 30, will that give me a right answer now? Let's check it. Sine 2 times 30, is it really equal to 2 times sine 30 times cosine 30? Let's evaluate both sides. This means sine 60, and this side means 2 times sine 30, which is half, cosine 30, which is radical 3 over 2. Sine 60 is equal radical 3 over 2. Here, half, and this can be simplified, so it is actually equal to radical 3 over 2. And this means that our identity here is correct. Sine 2x is equal to 2 sine cosine. And same thing can be applied for cosine 2x. Sine 2x can also be written as cosine x plus x, which will give me, if you apply it, cosine formula says cosine minus sine sine. So it's actually cosine squared x minus sine squared x. So cosine 2x is equal to cosine squared minus sine squared. Not only that, it can also be written in different ways. So let me just do this. So this is my first identity of cosine double the angle. And using Pythagorean identities, we know that sine squared can be written as 1 minus cosine squared. So I can say I have cosine squared minus 1 minus cosine squared. And if you simplify this, what will you get? Cosine squared minus 1 plus cosine squared. So actually we have 2 cosine squared x minus 1, and that will be a second form of cosine double the angle. And you can also replace the cosine instead of replacing sine, and that will give you, let's check, 1 minus sine squared x instead of the cosine, minus sine squared x which means 1 minus 2 sine squared x, and that's actually a third formula of cosine double the angle. So cosine double the angle can be written in three different ways: either cosine squared x minus sine squared x, or it can be written as 2 cosine squared x minus 1, or it can be written as 1 minus 2 sine squared x. So for cosine, we have three different ways to write it. And your question will be to show that tan 2x is equal to 2 tan x over 1 minus 2 over 1 minus tan squared x. This will be your question. Of course, you know now what to use. Look at what I did. Cosine 2x, what did I use? Sine 2x, what did I use? So you can apply the same thing in cotan to show that tan 2x is equal to tan x over 1 minus tan squared x. This should not take seconds from you. Now, let's have an example on how can I use these identities. Let's say I'm asking you to evaluate or find the exact value of, for example, cosine squared 15 degrees minus sine squared 15 degrees. How would I find an exact value for this? From the formulas, cosine squared minus sine squared of the same angle is cosine double the angle. So this can be written as cosine 2 times 15. So I'm talking about cosine 30 degrees, which means immediately radical 3 over 2. Another one, let's say I wanted to evaluate 2 sine 22 and a half cosine 22 and a half. Again, what does this mean? 2 sine cosine of the same angle means I'm talking about sine double the angle. 2 sine cosine of the same angle means I'm talking about sine double the angle. So this will be sine 2 times 22 and a half, which means sine 45 degrees. So it's equal to radical 2 over 2. And that's it about double angle formulas.
Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and write your questions via email or comments.